Welcome to the Fleet Geeks podcast. We're here to help develop fleet and transport professionals. Do you want to progress and develop your skills and knowledge? We promise to bring lively conversation and debate around interesting issues and keep you bang up to date with changes in our awesome industry. The Fleet Geeks are a community of professionals, and if you enjoy the podcast, why not join the discussion for free in the Fleet Geek community over on Facebook? Welcome Sarah to today's podcast for the Fleet Geeks. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you.
Good.
And it's lovely to come to Birmingham and it be raining.
Of course.
Is just standard. So we're looking across the rooftops of Birmingham city centre, and it's a bit grey and dreary for January, but it's all good. And I'm joined by the fantabulous Sarah Jennings from Weightmans. Sarah, would you mind? I know you've been on the podcast before, and listeners may or may not have heard you because they might be new to the podcast. Would you mind just introducing yourself for the benefit of the listeners, please?
Of course, Pete. Of course, and thanks very much for inviting me along today. I am Sarah Jennings. I'm an associate in the regulatory team here at Weightmans. I specialise in transport regulatory, which means that I help operators, mainly HGV, but also PSV operators, with anything with regards to their operator's licence. Now, that might be advice, day-to-day advice on things like restructuring, or, of course, preparation for public inquiries, preliminary hearings, driver conduct hearings, anything that involves your licence, I can give you help with.
Fantastic. And you've certainly helped a few flagship clients in the past and done a fantastic job, and everyone raves about the service. So, Sarah, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast today. And we're actually this is the first of two, isn't it, that we're going to do today for the beginning of 2026. So before I get into that, though, what is it you love about doing your job? What do you love?
That's a great question, Pete. That is a great question. I think the thing I love most about my job, well, I can't not say the clients, can I? I have to say the clients. The breadth of them, the experience of them, I think working with so many different clients, because as we know, the operator license regime is the same regime for everybody. Sure. Small, big, you could be a massive business that, is a household name that without them, we don't have any food on our table. Sure. Or you could be a one vehicle operator with you're the director, you're the transport manager, and you're the driver. And I'll help everybody just the same, whoever they are. So I think that the clients, they're the best part of my job.
Oh, I love that. And I must say, I love our clients as well. I think they're amazing. I think I know that you tend to deal with a larger or broader base of different operators, from corporate through to sort of privately owned businesses. Yeah. We do larger operators. We do, we've worked with councils and we've worked with the bigger corporate operators, but the predominantly sort of 80% of Flagship's work is privately owned operators. Yeah. I love dealing with operators. There's so many challenges, and everyone works really hard, and everyone's just honest, decent people, aren't they? So it's lovely.
That's right. That's right. And this is one of the areas that one of the areas of like work that you see so much effort put in, because there's so many things to cover, aren't there? It's everything from HR to compliance to just making sure that the vehicles are on the road in a safe and roadworthy condition. So Absolutely. There's so much to look after, and so it's always good seeing the day to day.
No, I love that. And so today's episode, we're going to have a look at some of the things that are going to be coming up in 2026. Over the two episodes, we're going to be focusing on two of those things. And this one predominantly is going to be focused on things like fuel, electric vehicles, alternative fuels, infrastructure, clean air zones and emissions, those kinds of things. So just to kick things off, fuel duty 2026, what are the changes? What are we expecting to see, Sarah?
Well, a good point is that fuel duty is staying frozen until September 2026. So I think that actually, whilst that might seem quite a simple thing to say, it's helpful to give us that stability for at least the next kind of 9 months. But what it doesn't give us is any stability after that. So preparation times now, I suppose, and we'll get on to EV vehicles and things like that. But I think that for operators, they really need to consider how they move forward into the future with fuel, how it impacts their operation and their margin, and create a plan now whilst you've got the opportunity, because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen with government, with changes. So I think that that's the key. Take a look at it and start considering it. You've got time, but put it on the radar now, I think. Another thing that we've seen is that the expensive car supplement for people that have smaller cars on their fleet is going up from 40,000 to 50,000 from April 2026, which is great because it means that you can probably put more EV or hybrid vehicles in your fleet that are often more expensive. If you've got some company cars and stuff like that, which I know a lot of smaller businesses do keep the company car as well through that. So I think that will provide more opportunity to move to better vehicles that are better for the environment and things like that as well.
Fantastic, which I think is a great opportunity to have that sort of relief on those things. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, really. I know it's not necessarily a question for a person like yourself, but alternative fuels, electric vehicles, infrastructure, what are your thoughts around that stuff? Is it really the future? Where are we heading?
Well, I think it's hoped that it's the future, of course, but there's a lot that still needs to be done, and it is beginning. We've got things like moving forward with a lot of trials at the moment, but I think overall I am seeing that diesel vehicles still seem to be the backbone of movement, and I think that will continue until we come up with these solutions that are really reliable. And I think that people are a bit nervous to go into alternative fuels and indeed trialling them because it costs a lot of money. The trials are not cheap. No. Things like hydrogen, things like electric vehicles, the key around them is the infrastructure. Now, we've heard from government that they're going to be putting in a lot of thought to creating better infrastructure for these things. But we're seeing it, but of course that's going to take time. Of course, it's never going to happen overnight. So the key is, I think, waiting almost for that to be put in place so that we know that if we're an operator and we operate around the east of England, for example, we've got plenty of places that our vehicles can fill up or top up, if you like, however they're run, because there's no use in starting to buy these vehicles if we've got nowhere for our vehicles to top up. So infrastructure is a really big point, and it is something that government are working on. But of course, we've seen it and we've heard it, but it needs to be put in place, which, like I said, will take the time. I think as well that, I imagine that a lot of customers are interested as well in in how you're moving to net zero and things like that. And of course, alternative fuels is really important with that. And again, I think it is more keeping it on your radar and looking to move forwards and researching and thinking about what might be the best thing for your business. And hopefully then, as the infrastructure gets put in place, you can move towards electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles, whatever's going to be the thing that works for you, because costs will come into that a lot as well, won't it? How much these vehicles cost. So I think that's kind of my overview of the position on things at the moment. It's a bit of a watch and see what happens, but try and plan again if you've got the opportunity to plan for it. Make those plans, because inevitably in the future it will hopefully cost less, by having these alternative fueled vehicles, and it'll be better for the environment overall, which your clients and customers will probably be looking for. We're seeing it more and more, so I think it's just keep an eye out and plan if you can.
I tend to agree with you. I think the current practicality means that it's probably unachievable for many operators to sort of focus too heavily in the practical here and now, but ultimately everything that is in the practical here and now has been theoretically designed and thought of, and therefore I think it's really, I've said it before on the podcast, I think it's really important, if you're listening and you're an operator or you're a transport manager, go out and train yourself and understand what the options are, understand what's out there, get to be I suppose fluent in the language of alternative vehicles, and alternative fuels as well. So you sort of are forewarned is forearmed, I suppose, and therefore you can start to create a plan. And then also as a business, everything's about telling a story and having a narrative. And I think that we need to build those narratives now to make sure they become a reality. Because if we don't build them, it almost feels like the companies that are out there and they're planning and they're thinking about and they're learning about and staying on top of these things now will certainly be quicker to adopt the change than those who are just going, it's pie in the sky and never going to happen, all of those sorts of things. Would you agree with that?
Exactly. And you don't want to fall behind the curve, because that's the worst thing, isn't it? Everybody else jumps on the bandwagon and you haven't made any plans or put in any structure in your business for these things, and then you're 6 months, a year behind, and I don't know, we don't know what's going to happen.
No.
So, you know, if you can at least get ready, prepare yourself, then hopefully you can move forward with stuff as soon as it comes in.
That's what competitive advantage is, isn't it? So, okay, cool. So I had a bit of a question around clear air zones. You know, do you get involved with these much? Where are they? Have we got more coming? What's the implications for operators? Tell me more about clean air zones.
Well, yeah, I think the key with these is just, you know, having them on radar and figuring out ways that they work for your business, because inevitably, if you travel into these places, there's no stopping that. If you've got deliveries to make, you have to make them, fine.
Sure.
But I think that my point really is around how you can be more savvy with how you do that, and how you can fit it into your system so it works for you. You know, I think a key is, of course, all HGVs need to make sure that they meet the emission standards or pay the daily fees, particularly in London. You know, we're seeing cities around the UK now adopting things like Bath, Birmingham, Bristol. They've got like the CAZ scheme, and charges, you know, range from sort of £50 to £300 for operators. So it's a big difference. Yeah. And I think, so that's where I'm talking about, you know, planning and getting things in place, because if you've got 3 vehicles going into a city, do you need 3? Or could you, are 3 kind of third loaded vehicles going in, or could you have just loaded 1 vehicle? Sure. Are you putting into your route planning, you know, to avoid clean air zones? Like, if you don't need to go in the city, are you going around it, or are you going through it for no reason? Sure. Again, you know, you don't want to make sure you want to make sure you're not getting things like PCNs for going through and then not paying them because your driver's gone a different route that you didn't want them to. So I think the key with this is planning, because I know that in this industry margins are often really strapped. So let's be more savvy about what we're paying for, because why are we paying for it? If we don't need to, if we can go around a city rather than through one, or if we can load a vehicle more strategically, rather than just sort of finishing off a couple of loads and they all seem to be in the city, can we just route that better so that 1 vehicle can do it? Because that's going to save you so much more money in terms of these charges, because really I just see them becoming more and more through cities. Like, we're seeing it now with more local councils, local government. They're becoming more conscious about clean air zones, and we're seeing trials, we're seeing like options for what they might look like in big cities around. So I think it's the planning and seeing what you can do to change now, because the ones that already have clean air zones in place, you know, are you putting in these ideas to help you not pay so many charges? I think that's the key, really.
Okay, and I've got a curveball of a question that I didn't prepare, so I'm hoping it's okay. But it came up, and I've just thought about it, and the answer might be no. Okay, so the answer might be no. Well, that sounds weird, preempting it that way. But the question is, do PCNs ever come up as a subject during PI, or have they come up as a subject during PI? For example, that an operator gets too many of them, or isn't properly managing their fleet because of the volume of them, or is it rarely enter the evidence pack or become part of a PI?
I've not really seen them like form the basis of the evidence, but I think that is all about being a safe, compliant operator, isn't it? You know, have you got something in place to manage them properly? Are they just falling under the radar? You don't know about them, you know, because, you know, local authorities can come after you, you know, for them too. So it's I think it's just ensuring that you keep on top of them, either by your transport manager, your administration team, and do you know about them as well? If particularly if you're a transport manager, is your administration team just dealing with and then moving on? Do you know how many are getting? Are you aware? Because is it something that you can help with? Could you help route better? Could you help do, I don't know, find better stops for drivers so that they don't have to stop on double yellows or wherever it might be?
It comes down to communication as well, right? Because one of the challenges that I've often seen is, you know, for example, complaints from rural locations where weight limits aren't adhered to, and those kinds of things. It's those things that can really add up, and then that sort of really comes into question the communication quality between the transport managers and the drivers, so that repeat offences aren't replicated.
Exactly, and the worst thing must be a member of the public complaining, because, you know, you have little control over that. If they're complaining, then what's happened? You obviously haven't controlled that situation, and it comes back to that communication point that you say, because you can control most things, you know, with your transport teams. You can't obviously control you can try and control how the driver drives the vehicle, but things can go wrong. I accept that, but you should be able to control where the driver stops. You're telling them, you're giving them enough information so they know delivery spots, where's appropriate, where's not, where would the customer prefer or not, you know. And so hopefully that eradicates any complaints and things like that. But again, it just falls to your point of communication, doesn't it?
Hi, it's Pete from Flagship Partners. Let me ask you something. How confident are you that the right version of your policies, procedures, and any compliance documents are actually being used right now? Because if your answer is fairly confident, that's not confidence, it's hope. At Flagship, our digital services, we help fleet operators move from folders, chaos, and crossed fingers to clarity, control, and confidence. Our platform, Optifile, is built specifically for fleets like yours. One source of truth, full version control, and clear accountability, and a simple way to prove your people have seen, understood, and signed the right documents every single time. No more, which version is this? No more, I think that's updated, and no more sleepless nights before an audit. If you're serious about running a safer, greener, greater fleet, it starts with getting your foundations right. Head to Flagship Partners and discover how, through our digital services like Optifile, we can tidy up the mess, reduce risk, and give you your time back. Because compliance shouldn't be a dark art, it should be crystal clear.
Awesome. So expectations on fleets around emissions reporting. Tell me more about that.
So I see this come up a lot. You know, if you have a maintenance investigation visit, they'll be looking for your AdBlue or fuel log or policies on that. And I see people slip up on it all the time because they don't have anything in place, or they've got like a precedent document but they're not really using it, and they might tell me that you know, well, we're just putting a bit of AdBlue here and there, we don't really know. And I think that the key for me on that is that means you probably don't know what's going on with your vehicles either, because if one vehicle is getting topped up a lot by multiple different drivers with AdBlue, have you got a maintenance issue that you need to go to your maintenance provider about? If you're not keeping a log, how can you really verify what's being put in?
Sure. And
how can you identify if you've got an issue or not? It might actually be, 10 different drivers that have driven this vehicle because they're not allocated a specific vehicle have all topped up in the last week. We might have some sort of leak, or we might have some sort of issue that we need to go to the maintenance provider about. So it's not just about keeping a log for the sake of keeping a log. It's ensuring that compliance piece as well. And as transport managers, you need to know what's going on. And again, things like fuel, you know, do you know how much fuel you're using? Are you going on economical routes, or are you just doing loads of inner city driving? That might be fine, because if your deliveries are there, then of course it makes sense. But you know, what makes sense to your business, and where is your money going? Because things are getting tighter, and I feel like we'll probably be more strapped than ever before. So how are we ensuring that our margins are still good? And if you don't know where your fuel's going and what you're doing, then you need to be taking a look at that, because it's not just for keeping the log, like I say, it's for your compliance and your peace of mind as well. And I think again, you know, accurate data will help with things like, you know, clients, tenders, they're asking for things like that probably.
Sure.
And you don't need to be a massive business to be asked it. I think if you're tendering for any contract now, a lot of people will want to know, where are you on kind of the emissions, like where are you with emissions, what's going on? And if you can't answer that, then, you know, if you're tendering for the work, you're just going to get a 0 or a black mark or whatever, you know, however they score you. And I think it's an easy enough win to be able to put something in place and keep a record of it. You keep a record of everything else.
Sure.
Your PMIs, your brake tests, you keep a record of all of that. So I think it's an easy enough win to keep a record of, and not least because you need one. So, you know, you don't want to have an audit and then you don't have one, and then again, immediately marked down. You know, when all your other systems might be great, don't get marked down on something that could be a simple fix.
Sure. I think you're absolutely right, and it comes down to good management. Like, if you're a transport manager and you're listening to this, like, the management of fuel, which then links to the emissions, is really important. Like, fuel is potentially 30% of the operating cost of any fleet of vehicles. It's a high cost, so keeping a monitor of how much you're buying, where you're buying it from, how much you're using, what rate you're paying for it, making sure you're negotiating that you're paying the right rate for it. I know a lot of operators who just tend to accept the rate that they're given. Obviously buy it in bulk for potential, but certainly from a fuel card perspective, when they're out and about, our transport managers are really making the effort to save that margin, because it might just be a penny a litre, but it really adds up. A couple of pennies a litre really does add up, depending on the size of your fleet. So I think it all sort of goes hand in hand from a commercial management perspective, and transcends into compliance as well, doesn't it?
Definitely, yeah. And I think that, looking ahead for 2026, the things we've discussed today they're all that, aren't they?
Yeah,
If you can keep an eye commercially and keep an eye compliance-wise, hopefully then you'll be in a good position to move forward and be comfortable moving forward, that you've got everything as well evaluated or as well on top of as it can be, which is great. And that's what you want moving forward as an operator, I think, and as the transport manager for that operation.
Yeah, as I said in the prep, it made me chuckle. We did a podcast recently around monitoring AdBlue and fuel, and I had an adverse comment on YouTube from somebody saying, "No wonder transport fleets are going to the wall when this is part of what you've got to do." I just chuckled to myself. So I guess, Sarah, final question for you would be: we were speaking before we came on the podcast around, you do a lot of reactive work for people. They get called to PI, you help support them, and you sort of go through that whole process. But you also do a lot of proactive stuff as well. Do you have a preference? And what does tell me a bit more about what proactive services you offer for fleets who think they're compliant or are compliant and want to just edge their CPD a bit further forward?
Well, yeah, proactive compliance is definitely my favourite, Pete, because reactive is stressful for all involved. Not really for me, because I do this every day, but very stressful for the people involved, and it takes a lot of time out of the business. Whereas proactive will probably take you less time out of the business, and hopefully then you don't need to get to that reactive stage. So I think proactively, of course, my best advice is keep on top of your compliance. But what we do at Weightmans is we can offer things like boardroom briefings, training sessions for the board, because the directors will not probably be as close to the operation as maybe your transport managers, or your fleet kind of administrator team, but and so we can do those kind of briefings for the board. We also do mock public inquiry days, which always go down really well, because it gives you an idea of what happens if the worst were to happen. And I think that nothing focuses the mind better than that. You put everyone in the position, we'll have some actors, and they'll play the driver or the transport manager or the director or whatever, and I'll be questioning them like I would question people at public inquiry. I'll be trying to get the evidence out, and and then you'll get your result on the day from the commissioner. It might be expected, it might be an unexpected decision,
Sure.
But that sort of stuff really focuses the mind when it comes to proactive compliance. I think reactively, of course, all assistance with public inquiry and things like that, and I think preparedness is the most important when it comes to public inquiry. You don't just want to rock up on the day not sure what's going on.
Sure.
So my kind of style is always to make sure that we're as prepared as we can be, to make sure that everyone feels nice and comfortable, because it's not just a meeting, it's
Sure.
a very important hearing that can put your licence at risk if it's public inquiry. So where your licence is already at risk, So I think it's just important that people take it very seriously and prepare as much as they can.
Sure. And and as we were speaking as well, if you've got a preliminary hearing call-up letter as well, Sarah's prep is the same regardless, pretty much, of whether
true.
It's a public inquiry or not, right?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, a preliminary hearing, because it gives you the opportunity not to get to PI. So the prep is very similar, and we will be putting in as much effort as a team, between me and my client, to make sure that we are equally as prepared for that, because that's your opportunity to really show why this regulatory action shouldn't go any further, and should stop here. So hopefully you've got the systems and the compliance levels that are looking really good to not take it further.
Sure.
So yeah.
Sarah, thank you for joining me on today's podcast.
Thank you.
Listeners, I hope you found that really valuable. Please do make sure you share, follow the podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. That'd be fantastic. And I'm going to be sharing another podcast next week, again with Sarah. So this time we're going to be focusing on driver management, vehicle compliance, things to look out for 2026 around adoption of new technology, making sure our drivers are properly trained, those kinds of things, as well as driver wellbeing. So looking forward to that one, Sarah, and I'll see you on the podcast next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share with your friends and colleagues too. Join us for free on Facebook with the Fleet Geeks community for transport and fleet managers. Fleet Geeks offers ongoing professional development, networking and mentoring too. So get in touch with me, Pete Rushmer, on any social media platform to find out more.